Our live June solstice gathering, and welcome to everybody that's here. I'm keeping an eye on the chat room just so that I can comment and respond to some of the comments that are coming in. But we have a wonderful community of beautiful diamond souls joining us for the solstice day today, which is and time, especially in June and in the northern hemisphere specifically, it is a time of peak light. So it's characterized as a spiritual time for creativity, for action. But we have a lot of other influences at the moment, celestial influences that are creating a tension around everything. Okay, so first of all, Cynthia said, "Have you started? I do not hear anything." Yes, can you guys, well, I just want to check with the rest of you. Sounds okay here. So Rachel saying sounds fine. So it's not from this side. There must be something on your side, Cynthia. Sorry, guys, for the recording. Okay, so the others can hear. So it's obviously um, something with Cynthia's computer. Okay, so to just get back to the essence of the solstice, peak light, peak time, lots of action and activity moving forward, creativity, um, and the mitigating circumstances around that are creating a kind of tension in respect of where to place our focus. It's like where our action is going to be best channeled at this moment in time. So I'm going to go into a little bit of detail with that before we start going into the insight and information on the African cosmology and the elements, which is just perfect for this moment in time. But essentially, we really are energetically within the framework of a perfect storm, as Lee Harris so wonderfully put it. That language was just perfect. And that theme has actually been coming through kind of like everywhere I've looked in the last week. Ever since that phrase jumped out at me, I suddenly realized just how amazing that was in respect of our solstice gathering and how we're going to work with it energetically. So it is indeed a perfect storm, which is a combination of fire and water to literally fuel and support deep transformation and healing. So it's a very, very powerful time at the moment. So let's start with just having a look at the Mayan signature for today, which you would have read in my newsletter. But the signature for today is the blue overtone storm. Now, how aligned and perfect is that? And it's a gap day, which means that everything is heightened. Again, it's just this intensification. And synchronistically, we have actually had some really intense solar winds and geo-effective activity over the last couple of days. Always when we have one of these significant alignments and events, there seems to be a step up in the geomagnetic activity, which increases the amount of charge in the atmosphere. So it is a real increase in the amount and the level of frequency and charge that our bodies are adjusting to and accommodating. So today being the blue overtone storm and a gap day, Mariella Meyer describes it as, may the energy of the blue storm help me to accept change and the chaos necessary for transformation and self-generation to occur. So there you have the wonderful wording. In the detailed description of the essence of this particular day, we find that this is an opportunity for initiation by fire, alignment with, we call them, they're referred to as descending energies. I would refer to them also as cosmic energies, because it is the cosmic waves and the cosmic influx that is buffering and influencing the local environment upon our planet. So it's alignment with the cosmic energies, rapid change. It is catalytic, which means that it fuels massive change in the recipients of the energy. The energy itself doesn't change, but the recipients of the energy actually have the opportunity to change. And that change can be positive or it can be chaotic, depending on how we align and work with it. It is and represents a quickening of your nervous system and all subtle bodies. So you may have experienced in the last couple of days, and I certainly have, an increase in the heat that has been transmitted through your bodies. Almost like a nervous tension, a heightened nervous activity. So I don't know if any of you have experienced any of this in the last few days. And in your subtle energy bodies, it's like, yes, 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 something's going on, and it's going to take a while for this to actually settle down, you know. It is a time for breaking through the false containers of self. So it's stripping away all of the masks. This is just perfect for the elements of fire and water. And that's interesting. Rachel says, definitely been feeling incredible heat, especially at night. Yeah, that's been me too, at night. And I can feel, I mean, the heat in my hands, the heat that's just pouring out of my body has actually been quite amazing. So I know that this is an exceptionally powerful time. And very restless. Yes, Nat, very restless. I haven't actually been sleeping well the last couple of nights as a consequence of this. So it is a time and an energy based on the Mayan energy signatures of rebirth with some associated instability because of the chaos. So it takes a while for us to integrate and manage the changes that are actually taking place, to manage the chaos. The mantra which goes along with this day, I empower in order to catalyze. So our true self, which is unchanging, is the catalyst also for change. It remains unchanged while everything around us and within us actually changes, to bring us more into alignment with our true self. So there's an interesting way of looking at it. I empower in order to catalyze. Commanding energy, I seal the matrix of self-generation. That is our own matrix of self-generation with the overtone of radiance. And the radiance is the radiance of our true self. I am guided by the power of accomplishment. So it's an opportunity and a time for accomplishment. Sorry about the typo there. I've left the T off the end. So yes, a very powerful opportunity to accomplish things. And this is where we get to the astrological definitions and the astrological alignments in respect of where do we need to put our energies in order to achieve those accomplishments. So let's have a look at what Kaipacha had to say with the astrological and celestial influences. And I thought, this is just perfect because he's talking about this week. So the solstice falls squarely within the week that he's actually defining or speaking about. So here we have conflicting energies, and the conflicting energies that he's talking about are fire and water. And coincidentally, I only came across this after I had actually come across the African cosmology, knew what I wanted to work with, the water and fire, put out the newsletter, and then this was Kaipacha's report on late Wednesday afternoon, and I went, okay, right, spirit is just always, sort of at the 11th hour, it all falls into place just really beautifully. So he's talking about the conflicting energies of fire and water as elements, long-term goals versus short-term projects, and determining priorities. So that can create some conflict within us. It's testing and it's challenging. So it's creating an internal tension, which we're experiencing as this heightened nervous tension, this nervous activity. It's an external drive, push and pull. Yes, Elaine, wonderful words. I nearly put the push pull, there it is in the bottom of the list, definitely feeling it. External drive versus internal surrender. And there you've got the external, the drive to push outwards, and the conflicting pull back to a place internally of surrender. Which is ultimately requiring an effort just to stay where we are. And I thought, oh, that's a beautiful expression. It's like all the effort that it takes just to stand still and go like, where should I actually put my focus? It's just amazing. So the links back to this particular time are back to April 2018. What did you let go of? What dreams were put in motion? And it is a testing time at the moment to bring that to fruition. So it's go back to April 18, if you can, because some of us have a problem remembering what we did 2 days ago, which is really quite funny. Go back to April 2018 and have a look at what goals and what things you set into motion if you can. Um, so we've got a comment here, which is resistance to moving forward definitely coming up, feeling of wanting to shut down or run away. Yes, 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 all of that. Oh, well, Marina says April 18 was my birthday. Well, that should be easy enough to remember what your goals were last year, Marina. So it is also part of the conflict here. So there's the long-term goals going back to April 18th, 2018. April 2018. January 2019, and the creative endeavors that were initiated as in short-term projects. So we've got this this tension between the long-term and the short-term projects and goals that we have set in motion, push, pull, and potential overwhelm. And then his mantra is really good because it's very, very applicable to this particular time. And that is sometimes I simply need to withdraw from the madness going on to create, protect, and hold the space of my peaceful, loving home. So very powerful words, very powerful mantra, and connects us to this essence of the madness out there in the world, the fire that is actually raging and fueling what we perceive looking outwards as perhaps a bit of insane madness. Back to the home within, back to the watery realm, back to the safety and the love of that space, that safe space, that nurturing softness, if you like, of the water. So it's really balancing our needs very carefully over this time, when to move out, when to take action, and knowing when to actually balance and pull back and take time for whatever it is that is calling out for healing. It is also an opportunity to restore, which you'll see through this cosmology, to what was the word I was actually going to use? Not restore, it was to transform whatever is interfering or we perceive as interfering with our achievement or accomplishment, in respect of focusing the fire energy. So yes, lots and lots of balancing, toing and froing, and managing a real heightened tension at the moment. And I got a lot of insights through this African cosmology that I'm going to share with you now, which is why I said this is a teleclass before we actually go into process, because I think you will find this, hopefully as I did, very practical, very useful, in a very grounded way of understanding and working with the elements, in a way that I have found sometimes difficult relate to in the Chinese Eastern ways of relating to the elements. So, without further ado, the Dagara are an African tribe from the northwest in Africa. I mean, Africa is a huge continent. It is the largest continent in the world. It has 54 countries, and I can't tell you how many different subcultures and tribal cultures there actually are within Africa. But there are common themes that actually run through each and every one of them in respect of their general approach towards the medicine wheel and towards balance within their communities. So it's really quite fascinating because I haven't specifically lived with the Dagara. I've actually spent time in South Africa, so I understand quite a bit of the influence that actually runs through the African cultures and subcultures. And there's a lot of similarity between them all. So here we have their medicine wheel, which you will note straight away almost looks a bit uneven. It's not the same as your traditional medicine wheels in the Native American cultures, for instance. So it's not equally demarcated in respect to the elements. And there's a very powerful reason for that. So here you will see on their medicine wheel that they have this largest portion of the medicine wheel demarcated as fire, and that is the direction of the south, and the color associated with it is red. So that's one of the traditional elements, but this is the largest element, And that is because fire initiates and impacts everything else. So it has the strongest influence on the totality of the medicine wheel. So that is the reason why this is demarcated as a larger quadrant, if you like. So opposite that in the north, we actually have water. Water balances fire, and that is associated with the colors of blue and black, which we know from traditional medicine wheels. Are you guys feeling some of the heat actually flowing at the moment, that the energy is rising? Because I'm starting to get very hot. Just as we're talking, I'm wondering, phew, I've got some water, thank heaven. The other elements in their cosmology are Earth in the center, which arises as a consequence of the interaction between fire and water. So that actually sits in the center. Here in the West, we have the element known as mineral. And there's a very valid reason for that, is associated with the color white. Maybe it's just here in the UK. Rachel said, I've just opened my window because I started perspiring. Yeah, I'm really feeling a surge at the moment. And then here on the eastern side, we have the element that they refer to as nature. Now, these all flow together and fit together in a beautiful way in respect of their understanding of the cosmos and the creation of the universe. So there's the basic structure of their medicine wheel. So it's fire, water, earth, mineral, and nature, which is different, as we say, to our traditional understanding of the 5 elements. So here we go. Fire is the first element. It was the initial earth. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, Rachel says, I can see feathers and scales. It really draws you in. Now, that's also interesting because, of course, we know that the balance of all of the elements is embodied by dragon. And dragon, it's not quite feathers, but has wings. Wings and scales, fire and earth, and it actually embodies and balances all the elements. So fire is the first element, and if we think about the creation of the cosmos, our Earth planet, before it became an Earth planet, was actually a spinning ball of fire or plasma or just pure energy. So from a cosmic perspective, that was what we started out as, was a glowing plasma ball of energy. The second element that actually arises is water. So that's second in line and 2 of the most important elements that give rise to life. So fire and water. And water, it is said that a collision with a body of water slowed down the fire, sent fire to the underworld. And if you think about the way that the earth is structured, we have this molten iron core, we have heat and fire that arises from the center of the earth through volcanic activity. So this is the fire that was actually sent to the underworld as a consequence of this, and the surface was left as a hot, steamy mass which was ripe for growth and the emergence of life. We know that life cannot exist without water, but fire had to actually be there first. It's the interaction between fire and water that then gave rise to earth, which is the third element. It's the marriage of fire and water. What is left with this steamy mass is the soil, and then the water actually erodes the rocks. The lava rock we know is mineral rich, lava soils, etc. So you've got all of the elements here now that have been created in this cauldron of fire from which Earth was actually first created, solidified with water, cooled through water, creating the conditions that are ripe for life. Mineral then is the fourth element, and in this particular model, mineral refers to the rocks and the stones which are perceived as the skeleton of the earth. And I absolutely love this because the way that they relate to rocks and stones, we know that the rocks and stones provide and hold memory, and that's the way that they actually view this element of mineral, that the rocks and the stones hold the memory of the history of the earth, of all of the history. So I've got a little bit more I want to share with you on that, Lord. And then the fifth element, so these actually arose as well as a consequence of some of the extreme solidification of the fire element through water and the creation of the earth. So it's your mountains, all of your rocks, your stones that were weathered to actually create much, much smaller pieces and sand and. So the fifth element is nature, and that is life itself, which is the vegetative, self-propagating life, which is humanity, it's plants, it's animals, it's all of the oxygen-breathing, sentient elements and aspects of life. So that is viewed then as the fifth element. Now, all of these within us as human beings actually need to be balanced and held in it's a natural tension, it's a natural flow between them all. And these are some of the elements which are spinning completely out of control and out of balance on the planet at the moment, purely because of a lack of consciousness, a lack of awareness, and a disconnection from what they actually represent. So the way that the Dagara view this, the African tribes, is that fire is the doorway to the ancestors. So it's the doorway to the animating force of life itself. It's the doorway into the origins, if you like, the origins of life. Water is viewed as the doorway to the other world and the mysteries, the home of non-ancestral spirits. So those could be your etheric realms, your angelic realms, your cosmic realms. It is all of the other beings and the other worlds that actually surround ours, without which we could also not exist. So again, we can't exist without fire, we can't exist without water. So the acknowledgement of the other realms, the spirits and the beings in those realms, as well as the ancestors, is actually critical for our own well-being and health. The other world is believed to be the source of water. I found this really quite intriguing because water is known. It's something that science cannot actually pinpoint or put a finger on. Water in and of itself is so mysterious that they cannot define or understand the actual origin of water and why water bears life. It's a real mystery to science, and we know that water actually carries memory. It actually holds memory. We know that the modern work of Dr. Emoto and so many of the modern consciousness movement understands this aspect of water to actually transmit and hold memory. And life began underwater. Without water, there is no life. Therefore, every living thing carries its life signature. Now, okay, so that's just an overview of the cosmology and the five elements. What I'd like to do is to just take you into a little bit more detail with each of the elements, because it will help to provide some deeper insight into the way that they view life. And this, to me, is, like I said to you, it's a much more grounded way of perceiving the totality, the interactive nature of all of life. Let's just see. So we've got, I was watching, Rosemary says, oh, it's Elaine. I was watching an old MacGyver episode called Eye of Osiris, and an archaeological dig had found 4 elemental rings that unlocked the blue stone, and in order, the lower ring had a basin that when it produced fire, and the ring above, when water added, produced air due to evaporation, then touched, touched the earth stone at the top. Isn't it interesting? Yeah, it's sort of this ancient wisdom that starts making so much more sense. Rosemary says the sub and unconscious mind used to be referred to as the waters of the mind. Yes, it's true. A century ago, before psychology. Absolutely, it is. The unconscious is what we are unconscious of that can actually create great turmoil in our lives. So therefore, our connection with the spirit, the essence of water, helps to bring things into conscious awareness. So it makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's just a different languaging. Okay, so let's have a quick look at fire. It's the elements of origin. its primal nature, which we know clearly is warmth, combustion, vision, and feeling. Think about most of the shamanic practices in modern times, and those shamanic practices actually use both water and fire in order to achieve visionary states. Think about when you stare into the flames of a fire, you know, it's mesmerizing. It actually takes you into an altered state of consciousness. So it actually initiates and helps to induce visions because it is a doorway into other realms. So it's about vision and it's about feeling. Color red, location south, and underworld, we've already said. It's the state to which everything returns. It's therefore the state that the ancestors are in. The ancestors came, they embodied, they lived on this planet, they lived in human form, and then they returned to their original state, or to the realm of spirit, the original birth of life, if you like. So it is a doorway to the ancestors. On Earth, therefore, their belief is that we are warmed by the heat of the ancestors. So it really places great importance and value on the ancestral continuum of which we are a part. And it's really interesting, again, that in modern psychology, there is beginning to be a much greater understanding of the level of interconnectedness and the ancestral memories that actually run through the very fabric of our being. So this whole thing about connecting with the ancestors is actually vital for our well-being, and the indigenous peoples knew this. All of the indigenous peoples actually honor and revere their connections to not just their ancestors, but the collective of ancestral energies. Fire opens this door and enables our psyche to communicate with these realms. Yes, yeah, fire. The dead were returned to their place of origin by fire. On the ocean, yeah, they've done. I know the in Asia and then the northern Viking Nordic countries, they do the same thing. It's a funeral pyre. It's a fire associated floating off on water. So very, very interesting. Yeah, this combination, this relationship between fire and water. Fire is contained in everything, even in water. Now, this intrigued me when I saw this, which is why fire takes up a greater chunk of the cosmological wheel. And that quite fascinating, because that almost seems counterintuitive, because water actually douses fire. However, if we look at it from a slightly different perspective, water consumes fire when it actually puts it out. So therefore, water contains the fire and helps to manage and focus the energy. So all water actually, and all elements that subsequently arise, actually contain the original fire. It's the animating life force for our connection with, our understanding, our experience of life itself. So it's the animating force for all of life. So does that make sense? That for me was really quite interesting, to think of water actually containing fire, but fire is actually contained in everything. So qualities of fire, which are slightly different to some of the traditional understandings that we may be familiar with. We know it's our ability to act. It's about action. It's also our ability to emote and intuit. So when everything is heightened by the energy of fire, our intuition is heightened. So when our vibration is heightened, we're closer to the fire, we're closer to the realm of spirit. Intuition is actually heightened. Being on fire is about craving a connection, translated often into restlessness, lots of emotion, and strong dream experiences. Rachel says, really interesting how we're coming full circle with ancient understanding and wisdom becoming our modern day understanding and wisdom. Yes, that we can understand it and translate it now in respect of modern day without it being perceived as simply being primitive nonsense. And I think it is of such value for us to acknowledge and recognize this, because this is where we have become disconnected in our modern lifestyle and with our modern programming. So as part and parcel of our consciousness expansion and that awareness being enhanced is the reintegration of these wisdoms into our current understanding so that we can work with it in a practical way. So yes, thank you for those comments. People with strong fire act as a gatekeeper to the world of the ancestors. Mary says this is so clear when you hear the truth. Yeah. So it's translated in a way that's not mumbo jumbo, that you can actually see through the mythology to be able to extract the truths from it. It's really, really important. So gatekeepers of fire are able to interpret dream symbology. They walk the line between human living culture and the ancestral world. And it's really interesting, the ancestral culture. So therefore, they don't fit into either, and are often isolated or feel isolated on the edges of community, and are misunderstood. So very, very interesting, because here you now find that those who are in our modern culture, in our modern society, are closer to the realms of spirit and their spiritual realms, the divine realms that are ruled and governed by this element of fire in its strongest sense. So those who are truly working with this, look at all of us, how many people within our community have said, I've never fitted in. People have never understood me. I've kind of been isolated looking for my tribe. We stand outside of the family because we have this inherent ability to commune and communicate. So it's very, very often shamanic. And I want to bring your attention back to the association between fire and the diamond. Because remember how many times before I've actually said to you that the translation diamond is two pyramids back to back. Translation of the word pyramid means fire in the middle. So we have an inherent connection to the fire of spirit, as a bridge between the worlds through our diamonds and our diamond body, and the diamond that we create. So there's an inherent diamond association with this work, which I think you guys, you've been with me long enough to be able to grasp that without me going into too much detail. Elaine says, star seeds finally connecting and awakening when before isolated. Yep, absolutely. So what do we find with a fiery culture? And you're going to relate to this straight away. You're going to see it. It consumes. What does fire do? It consumes everything in its path, and it seeks to transform and transmute everything. So that can either be positive or it can be completely destructive. Think about the divine fire, the Kundalini. What do we say? The divine feminine. She can actually create, transmute, or she can be completely destructive. So fiery culture actually consumes everything. A fiery culture equates fire with power, hierarchy, and value. When out of control, fire destroys everything in its path. It pollutes, conquers, and destroys, because whatever is left as a consequence of its path is simply spewed out, left in the waterways. So pollution is a direct consequence. Pollution of the water element is a direct consequence of fire burning out of control, uncontrolled fire. Cultivates scarcity to fuel restlessness, then uses the burning psyche as energy to increase production and consumption. Now, where do we see that at play? In the Western cultures that have become so prominent and predominant. It is fascinated by violence, therefore promotes it and even markets it. It generates a war culture that only sees conflicts and solutions in terms of fire. It values speed. It has forgotten the crucial relationship to the other worlds. When a culture is burning, it is almost impossible to stay still and focused. So there is no focus, or an inability to, because your attention keeps on being diverted. It is future focused, so it's always on the next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing, and there's very little integration and opportunity to assess. It's impatient, hyperactive, and intolerant, and it requires a lot of water for healing. Now, how's that for a description? It's not just the US. I know that the US is there. It's also the UK and so many of the Western cultures. So now the US is receiving a lot of rain. However, there are also a lot of storms. So it's not just the rain. There are a lot of thunderstorms. There is a lot of charge in the atmosphere. There is also a lot of lightning. So there's still, even though there is a lot of water, there is a lot of fire at the moment as well. So it's, yes, the earth and is desperately trying to restore and maintain balance in this overabundance of fire energy. Bonnie says, and here is the south, a lot of heat and feeling of fire after a lot of rain. Yes, yeah, absolutely. So can you begin to see this in a slightly different way in respect of the elements? Now, I had a very open question for you guys that I actually just wanted to pose and posit. Is the spiritual drive that we see at the moment, to constantly raise frequency, is it a symbol of crisis or is it a symbol of growth? So there's a few more comments here in the chat room. I just want to, while you guys think about that question. Rachel just said, I saw us all surrounded by thick black smoke from the fire. It was blocking our view of what is in front and what is behind. Very interesting vision. Yeah, Marina says, yes. Oh my, yeah, very interesting. Could be symptomatic of addiction. Absolutely. Let's have a look. Both crisis and growth. So Rosemary says, Ray Chandran. Let me just get that comment. That's really interesting. Ray Chandran says that fire is feminine, the Shakti. Yeah, whereas Shiva, the male, is passive. This is where the feminine energy is captured and controlled, is misused. Yes, absolutely. That's very interesting. A very interesting comment, and certainly food for thought. Feels like both, Bunny says. Mary Beth says, as you choose, both still up for grabs, which will win. Yes. What I'm also wanting to note here is that this constant raise to increase frequencies is an indication of a focus on fire as opposed to a balance with water. So almost what is happening spiritually is a contribution, an escalation of the crisis. Is the spiritual community escalating the crisis in order to raise awareness of the necessity to actually come back down and work with the other elements to ground ourselves? We hear a lot about being ungrounded in the spiritual community. So it's one of those paradoxes that as we fuel our frequencies and raise those frequencies, that we are perhaps contributing also to this escalation of the fire element, so that it becomes too obvious to ignore. So Rachel says, I think it's both as well. I think the energy that's driving us is contaminated by desperation, yes, for peace and less stimulation. Very good comment. Yeah. Perhaps they will both combine in harmony and have a win-win. Wouldn't that be interesting? So food for thought. Food for thought. Because, the whole talk about the Schumann resonances and the frequencies actually shifting and changing is perhaps our consciousness is having an impact on the intensification of those frequency bands, which is causing people now to swing actually out of balance. So in a roundabout way, it's a good thing, but the experience of it is actually very challenging and testing, which is what Kaipachu was saying about this time anyway. It's creating a tension. So, very interesting comments. Thank you, everyone. Rachel and Elaine agree. All of these movements go mainstream and are distorted into imbalance. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And that's what happens. It's more followers, more this, more money, sort of like the more money you can make, the better. It's like more marketing, more visibility, more this, more this, more this, more. And that's actually fueling. So Elise says, I am water mainly and here to help with healing. Wonderful. Lesser earth and here to ground. Curious what others on call are. Elaine says, yes, what we're doing is forcing people to make a choice. And the fire becomes fueled and empowered by fear. Absolutely. There definitely feels as though there's a gap widening between those in the spiritual community and the consciousness communities. Yes, there is a difference. Very much so, Rachel. Thank you for that distinction. And Elaine says, I'm quite connected to the Rainbow Water Tribe. Okay, yeah, very, very interesting. So I actually feel and experience fire a lot, and yet I have a water connection. But ultimately, yes, while we do seek to balance all of these elements within ourselves, there is one that predominates within each of us, and we become the gatekeepers for those for that particular element. So when we actually move into ceremony and we've been able to identify which particular element we are the strongest in, then we stand as the gatekeeper. And that's where the honoring and the support within community and the harmonization within community comes in. It's the seeing of each individual and the recognition of the gifts that each one of them brings. So there's some very, very interesting insights that I actually found from looking at the world from this perspective. Very, very powerful way of perceiving it. So yeah, thank you for that. Let's have a look at water. I'm just going to go, gosh, I can't believe the time. I'm going to have a look at the water quickly. Water as an element encountered fire to bring about the positive change needed to generate life. So that's the interaction between water and fire. Water supports the bringing about of positive change in order to generate life itself. Because fire all on its own will rage and consume anything in its path. Water actually reconciles and quiets down what is trapped in the crisis of combustion. So when we are taken over, like most of the Western world is at the moment, by these fanned flames of fire, we need to reconcile and quieten down those aspects of us that are trapped in that crisis. It gives life. It is the water of life. We are often known as the children of water because we emerge from water. It purifies and it makes authentic. So through the healing and the purification, it helps us to identify and see our real self because we have a quiet enough mind to be able to perceive that. It balances agitation, emotional disorders, and self-danger. It is a positive slowdown, restores and enhances life from the threat of death, fosters vitality and blossoming, and it's associated with focus. Now, usually I don't think we would have perhaps associated water with focus, but water slows everything down enough for you to be able to bring things into focus. When something is actually vibrating or moving at such high speed and intensity, it's too quick for you to be able to focus on it. So you can kind of see how this works from a life perspective very powerfully. So what would water look like? Yeah, that's it. This week leading up to and including the solstice, a bunch of young people have gone into the North Carolina forest to do healing work for Gaia as members of the Rainbow Tribe. Very interesting. Thank you. So water does help to calm us down and to reboot. So the qualities of water include understanding, because we slow things down enough to be able to understand. And that is important because you think out there in the communities as well, how much value is placed on understanding? There's a lot of value placed on acceptance of things. You just accept what you're given. You accept the information that comes from spirit. There is actually no focus. And so this is where things start becoming ungrounded and running away. and getting more and more aware with the fairies, quite literally, because there is no focus on understanding. There is no focus on slowing things down enough to achieve that understanding. It is slow and it's eager to make things work for the greater good. Okay, so powerful. It perceives the world in terms of possibilities. It's about community, relationship, love, and harmony. It is also about grief. And this is through recognition of the loss from our failure to notice when fire was raging. Okay. So how interesting to see it from this perspective, because we tend to just simply relate to water in terms of emotions. Whereas this really puts it into a slightly different perspective. Desire, it's also the salted tears of grief, and grief is the enemy of denial, and denial fuels fire. It is a desire to reconcile differences. So it is actually a desire to reconcile the energies of fire as well as the emotive desires to ground, to resolve, to reconcile, and to let go of the masks. So let's have a look. What have we got? A few more comments here. So Elise says, I held a small retreat last summer to do the same thing. Healing of Gaia was a gathering of way showers for the New Earth consciousness. Wow, that's wonderful. So true. I always go in the shower when I need clarity or to understand. It's like my magic booth. Well, there you go, Natalie. That's exactly it. Yeah, the magic booth. Such profound statements. Incredible downloads you've selected for us. Oh, Elaine, thank you. Bless you, sweetheart. I was going, wow, as I was going through this material and going, this is really interesting and a very powerful insight. And it's something that we can all benefit from. And it's, like I say, it's the African. And I know I've been drawn to the African way of perceiving things and the connections for a reason. And when I read through this, I went, oh my God, this makes so much more sense to me than does, sort of the Asian system of the elements. It's so easy to understand because it's literally down to earth. So a water culture, let's have a look at a water culture very quickly. So you get cultures within the world that are water-based. They like to keep things as they are. Don't like the natural environment being perturbed. Slow with very little temper, i.e. very little fire. Little ambition. Not in a hurry to do or complete anything. And this is so interesting in respect of some of the African tribes, because, we speak about getting things done in Africa as getting done on Africa time. So there's just no concept of that time. There's no sense of urgency. It's like, tomorrow's another day. It's not a problem. So everything is done on Africa time. They perceive time very broadly. Think about all the things never accomplished, but actually have no regrets about what's not accomplished. So it's completely different from this rush, got to do, busy. But water preserves harmony, and that's why restoring our water supplies and our natural water on the planet are so important, more important than ever, because the fire, the industrial revolution, the patriarchy, whatever, has polluted the waters to such an extent. Elaine says, yeah, now you make me laugh. Not in a hurry to do or complete anything. Well, it's actually true. It's a complaint in Africa because sometimes it doesn't meet up to the Western world's expectations of I want everything yesterday. So it's like, no, do it. I'll do it now. If you guys haven't actually heard this before, the wonderful South African expressions, which are now, just now, and now. Now, you have to be African to understand that, because it makes no sense to anybody in the West. Because to say I'll do it now means I'll do it, like maybe sometime. To say I'll do it just now means, well, it's maybe a little bit more urgent. I'll do it maybe in the next 24 hours. Now means I might do it today. So yeah, that's sort of the African way. But anyway, a world which is out of balance and unreconciled suffers with waters become the dumping ground. They are polluted and mistreated. It is a sign of crisis because they become the exhaust system of human denial while they continue speeding along frenzied. It has become as if fire does not like the presence of water without realizing that the water actually contains fire. Okay, but it actually supports the focusing of that fire. So does that give you some reference point? Do you want me to quickly go through? I've got a summary of the other elements without going into the cultures and what have you. Would you like to see those? Sure. All right. Okay. Earth. Earth that arises. I'm just conscious of the time as well because it's already like almost an hour. But this to me is fascinating and it feels really important that we understand this. Elaine just says, you made me feel so good about doing pretty much nothing all week. Rachel says, I think it's good to appreciate and respect other cultures. Yes, as we're discovering with the Diamond Light Reiki, the West can often push aside what it doesn't want to acknowledge. Absolutely. Elise says to Elaine, you're healing others in Gaia just by being you, Elaine, being the key word. Absolutely. Being the key word. But we are having such fun. It's wonderful. Oh, you guys are great. I love this community. Okay. Earth. It's home. It links us with the aspect and our connection to what we might perceive as home. It is the mother, which we know, and relate to in terms of Gaia. It is nourishment, support, comfort, and empowerment. It is identity and a sense of belonging. So when we have the right balance and association between fire and water, this is what we are able to connect with, and to be able to see and perceive and act and respond to. It's produced as a result of fire and water. It is our identity and a sense of belonging. We are here as human beings on this earth. And that's interesting because how many communities now do we see out there where the whole focus is on being galactic, on being cosmic, being out there, out there, out there, out there. Okay. So it's like we've lost our sense of belonging to this earth, to this planet. We've lost our home. It represents survival, healing, love, and caring. Loves to give and gives abundantly, which we know that the earth does. Central position in the wheel, which is about visibility, which is to see and to thrill in being seen. So the earth loves being seen for everything that she offers us. So in individuals, it comes across as being a lover of the world. You know, it's just saying, oh, but I love being here. This is just so much fun. It's a roller coaster ride, but it's an amazing experience, you know. It finds comfort anywhere and everywhere an individual can. So a home is anywhere upon the surface of the earth, unlike water, which moves in one direction towards the ocean. So that's the thing about water. It moves slowly and steadily in one direction always. Whereas earth, and somebody who is connected with the element of earth, feels very comfortable upon the surface of the planet anyway. And they are also nurturers generally. A person without earth and without balance of this element is technically homeless, in crisis. And I don't mean homeless as in on the street, but it does call into question why the Western world actually views homelessness with such difficulty that they allow it to perpetuate and do not do anything about it, and how they think it's fine to buy up, tracts of land from whoever, wherever they got it from, and sell it off, tracts of our mother planet, and sell it, sort of like, where did that practice actually stop? They've commoditized earth and our beautiful home. So it's a loss of grounding. It's a lack of community in very many cases, because home is built up as a consequence of community. It takes from the world as much as possible because they are not nourished. Lives with uncertainty about themselves. So very, very interesting. So comment here. I think it's interesting how we tend to think the Earth Gaia needs healing and saving. Let's just have a look. I see her as an empowered sovereign being who is not a victim of anything. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, it's we. We are the disempowered ones very often. That's it. Yeah, selling off tracts of land and borders separate. It is our own lack of empowerment that projects that onto her. Yes, 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 yes. That's exactly it. So it is fueled. Going back to the origin, this fire that's burning out of control distorts every single other element because it is actually contained within all of the elements. So it's raging out of control, leading to all of this instability. Okay. Mineral or stone? Oh, excuse me. Oh, I forgot to take this picture off. Oh, goodness. Okay. You know what I was trying to do? I'd actually put this in because I've got some images on the next slide and I forgot to delete it off this slide. Sorry, guys. Okay, so from here, mineral or stone, which is the next element, is the storage place of memory. It is the skeleton of the planet. So it is the mountains, the rocks. It is all of the solid structures, the skeletal structures that actually hold the essence of memory. And it is actually said, the indigenous peoples also believe that our bones, our own skeletons, are what actually hold the crystallized memories within those forms and structures. It's the principle of creativity, of resources, because if we have access to all of the memories, we have access to all of the resources. The stories and the symbolism allows us to remember, to communicate with each other, to receive messages from the other worlds, remembering our origins and purpose linked with skeletal structure. There was a very interesting comment that's hidden underneath this picture. Which was to the effect that, again, being completely out of balance in the world in respect of mineral or stone, what the Western cultures have done is they have taken the stone and elemental minerals from the earth in order to create the computer systems which serve as storage places for memory externally. So you can kind of see this imbalance and this externalization rather than coming back to the internalization. And what we have been saying for a long time is that we form the organic internet. Every single human being upon the planet interconnected when they connect through the primary grids of reality and life itself. We form an organic internet. And yet what we have done is externalized all of that using the minerals which store memory. So it's selectively storing memory, enabling us to externalize this internet and this connection. So is it perhaps that, humanity has lost the ability to a large extent? Most have lost their ability to connect through their own memory banks and through their own structures to the stories that actually keep history and the continuum alive. So very interesting comments there. Now, the images I wanted to show you were also what fascinated me, because this whole idea of memories being stored in stone, we know through working with crystals that is one of the things that individuals have been drawn to in respect of working with crystals, is opening up the memory banks of the planet through the crystals. But the rocks themselves, this is a place in Magaliesberg, all four of these in South Africa. Yes, you can see the faces. You could also see this one. It's a chicken on a nest, and it is so clear. It's just absolutely amazing. When we first saw this in the rocks, it was there, and this demarcated the entrance into sort of a plateau of these rocks. But the very, very first time I actually went up to this plateau, this is the second oldest mountain range in the world, is the Magaliesberg Mountains. The very first time I went up there was in 2010, which is where that initial picture was actually taken. What I saw and what I noticed were all of these, not just faces, but forms. Everywhere I looked, I was actually seeing animal forms and animal faces and, sort of just life forms. And I remember saying it's kind of like all the blueprints for life are held within the rocks. The patterns are there. And that was before I actually discovered this cosmology that made so much sense of understanding the elements in, and the associations here. Because if you look around, you can actually see the guardians of the history of the rocks, and the blueprints for life. And that's what's fascinating. I have only ever seen this to such a degree in Africa. The land holds the blueprints. Yes, it does. And in these rocks, specifically in the oldest mountains, you see the oldest blueprints. It's like connecting through these rocks takes you back through time. It is the most amazing experience. It's just beyond words to describe. So that's part and parcel of what we do when we actually go back to, when we do these trips to South Africa, as we connect through the rocks too. We really trace our ancestry back to the minerals. Yeah, we tend to view the mineral kingdom as being lower than ourselves, which is really interesting. So that's an interesting comment. Land holds blueprints. Yeah, we seldom trace our ancestry back there. But if we can view it from another perspective and understand that the mineral kingdom and the rocks actually hold the entire memory banks of the planet, it becomes a very, very interesting exercise to be able to connect with those ultimate blueprints for all of life, rather than just viewing minerals as a lower life form. Okay, so moving on. I just wanted to show you that one. The fifth element, Elaine says, can you spell the name of this location? Okay, I'm going to spell it. Magaliesberg. You can Google it. Okay, so the fifth element is nature. And it represents the principle of change. So you've got the blueprints in all of the minerals, all of the history in the minerals and the rocks. You've got the earth, the fertile soil that was actually created through the balancing and the merging of fire and water. And out of that then emerges sentient life, oxygen breathing life that is flexible, vegetative, continually changing and growing and evolving, that is flexible, adapts to the cycles of the sun and the moon and the very cycles of life itself. So it also incorporates an understanding of death and magic. It is about being real. So yes, coming to life and actually being authentic. It's about humor, play, and joy. All plants, all animals, all living sentient beings and their very nature. It's accepting that, accepting our own human nature in addition to our spiritual origins. So it's merging both. It invites us to welcome change and to change constantly. It is a complex paradigm and a model for life, as in ecosystems, which develop as part of the natural adaptability of life. It is an incredible power to adjust and to keep on adjusting. Pardon me. And landscapes and physical geography are language to Indigenous people. It is a writing that can be read. And I think one of you actually mentioned that earlier. So yes, it's like they can read the landscapes. Very interesting. Also the different landscapes they read as having different qualities and understand as having different qualities. Elevated areas are perceived as antennae, which we know mountaintops. That's why very often we're drawn to elevated areas and mountains. Waterways carry the information to the underworld. And then this I found very interesting. Barren and flat landscapes emit a very fast-moving energy that is dangerous to isolated individuals, as in deserts, which is why you very seldom see people out on their own in such environments. And the Indigenous peoples actually say that to find yourself out in a barren landscape on your own is a very dangerous place to be. Because of the fast-moving energy. And if you think about the fire energy and what it's doing, is it's actually reducing vast swathes of the surface of our planet to desert, and to very barren, flat landscapes through the destruction of trees and so on. Trees themselves, here you go, Marina. Trees protect and shield humans, and they also have very magical qualities. So there's a lot more here. I've really just scratched the surface and taken this the highlights out. I don't really actually want to go into too much more. Elise says, so resonate with this. No wonder I spent so much time in nature. Love and regenerate outdoors. Yes. And aha. Oh, wonderful. So I hope you've all had your great or some ahas through this particular presentation. The greatest challenge in balancing the elements is in balancing the modern world, and this is the perception of the indigenous peoples, is in balancing the modern world with nature. And they often perceive that it is very difficult because they see that the advancement of the modern cultures is actually compromising nature. And that is hurtful to them. So they don't see any way of reconciling it. Whereas if it's approached with consciousness and with understanding, we can actually find a way to balance all of this, to keep on growing and modernizing, while holding the reverence for nature intact and holding the ecosystems in their rightful place. So very, very powerful insights. I'd love to do some more in-depth work with this, with you guys as a community. So I think I really must look at setting up some in-person work with it so that we can do some African initiation. So we're back to the beginning. That gives an oversight. So where we are at the moment is, who's that? Elise says, I lumped earth and nature together and see now they are separate. Oh, very interesting. Yes. So you can actually resonate more with one than with the other. Yeah. Okay, so we are talking about transforming and balancing fire and water. So what we are going to do is we are going to do a virtual ritual, a community ritual with us online, which can't be done in person, but we're going to work on balancing these. So fire rituals establish connection and purpose. This, you see, this is also really interesting, is that for all of the so-called spiritual stuff that's actually going on out there, how many people do you still hear saying, I'm confused about my purpose? I don't know what my purpose is. And that in itself says that there is an imbalance here between these elements, that this is moving out of control. So they just keep going from one workshop to the next because they actually cannot establish the connection and focus that is necessary. So anyway, fire rituals are about connection and purpose. They're about opening doors to the other realms and to the ancestors. They're about surrender, release, and transformation. So it's surrendering to the fire. We tend to think of fire rituals about simply, sort of burning away that we no longer need. Yes, that is an element of it, but it is not the only aspect of working with fire. It is establishing a connection and then transforming. So it's burning away that which is no longer needed and transforming it into and giving back something that is of value. That is the purpose ultimately of fire, not just the burning away, it is the transformation of. So it is receiving a gift that we can take with us. And water rituals for grief. We're not going to focus on the grief aspect today, but we'll see what comes up during the process. It is also for prosperity and well-being. So in reestablishing flow, reconciliation of elements and aspects within the psyche, and of healing. So very, very powerful component is the healing. Yes, I love it. I love it. There's Elaine's just said, just lit my candles. So that is when you light a candle, the very act of lighting a candle, you can do it with such consciousness that you actually invoke and call in the presence of the ancestors, and you literally open a doorway to the other realm. And lest we forget, some of you may not be aware because this was mentioned a long time ago in one of the webcasts, is that when we burn candles, when you see a candle flame burning, at the very heart of that candle flame, the heat and the pressure is such that inside that candle flame you have a source of carbon from the wax itself, that it's actually busy producing millions of tiny, tiny nano diamonds. So it's creating them and destroying them in short periods and bursts of time. So you actually have within that flame the creation of diamonds and diamond energy being emitted through the candle flame. So it's just a beautiful analogy. And again, that association between diamond and bridging the worlds. So yes, so really important that once we've released and transformed, we then actually heal whatever is or has arisen or been brought into our awareness. We've been made aware of something that actually does require healing by water. So we're going to actually adopt a combined ritual that works with both of these elements in the process today. So without further ado, you guys have been very patient with me. I hope you've actually enjoyed that. Any more comments or questions before we go into our actual session? Nope. All quiet on the Western Front already. Okay. So oh, something else I want to show you. Sorry, just very quickly before I forget. There is a oh, I can't find it. I had a light code. And it's a resolving duality light code, and I can't get it up on the screen. It obviously was not meant to be a part of this process. So we'll go without that one. Okay, that's fine. I can't find it using this program, so I'm not going to take up your time anymore. Okay, so if you need to, take a drink of water, make yourselves comfortable. And close your eyes. And begin as always by taking long, slow, deep breaths in. Allowing your attention and your mind to settle and focus on your breathing. Breathing in not only life-giving oxygen, but breathing in water vapor from the atmosphere, connecting with the element of water on your breath. Through the oxygen, you connect with the fire, the animating life force. So you breathe in both of these elements through the very air that you imbibe into your body. Be aware of connecting to the essence and energy, the animating life force of fire as a spark of life, literally, within every cell, every atom, every molecule of your body. Take your attention within and just explore your inner world as you continue breathing. Aware of your inner world lighting up. With consciousness. For the animating light of fire lives in every corner of your body. And it seeks now to make known to you that which requires transformation, for which its presence is heightened at this time. You may or may not be aware of what that required transformation is right now, and that's okay. Just connect through your breathing. Aware of the aliveness in your being. And you find yourself now within the safety of an African village. This village is built around a central tree that oversees all activities. And as you gather with other members from this community, you're aware of local members of the African tribes, of their presence welcoming you into their sacred ceremonial space. There is an honoring of you for the work that you are doing in bridging the African and Western cultures, the meanings and purpose, and reharmonization through your very being. So you are welcomed into this place where you feel safe. And you are introduced to the tree, for the tree forms the central point of the village. It is the place around which the village is created. The tree represents a living being to this tribe. She is the guardian of the village, of the community. And you go up to the tree and you place your hands upon the trunk and you simply connect with the essence of the tree, with the being, the spirit of the tree. Feel the aliveness and the life force moving up and down the trunk of the tree. If you are close enough and quiet enough and receptive enough, you may hear, feel, or sense a message from the tree. If not, simply give your thanks as you allow yourself to be guided to another part of the village where a central fire has been lit. And the fire is actually built or created from the redundant and dead branches of surrounding trees, that which is now devoid of life force and ready to be transmuted back to its original state. And there is an elder from the village, a medicine woman, tending the fire, ensuring that it burns strong and vibrant. And around the fire is a circle of stones, and then moving out from that, another wider circle of stones away from the heat of the flames. You are invited first and guided to the outer circle, where you take up your place and you sink your feet into the sand as you connect with the African earth. This is a sacred ceremony that has been prepared just for you. For as you restore the harmony between the fire and water elements within you, so that harmonized effect finds its way out into the world. As you sink your feet into the sand, surrounding the flames of this fire in the center, you become aware of a beating of drums. Outside of the circle, the ceremony is initiated by the beating of drums that reverberate through the ground, up through your feet and into your body, synchronizing you within this space. The light dims as daylight fades to night and the flames become brighter and brighter. And above your head is a clear expanse of sky, brilliant with sparkling stars, distant suns, the burning fire of the cosmos. And the maids and women who tended the fire brings around a bucket of pure water from a nearby spring. It is cool and fresh and untainted. And she invites you all to begin the ceremony by taking a drink of this sacred water. This water that carries information released into the underworld, into your unconscious. This pure water that sparkles with life. It gives life to your own being as its memory and information washes through your own being. Each of you takes a drink of this crystal clear water. And then one by one, you are invited up to the fire to stand outside of the inner circle, close to the flames. And you take with you, as you walk up to take your position in the inner circle, you take with you your intentions, your awareness for what desires or is required to be transformed at this moment in your life, what you may be aware of that is interfering with your ability to achieve or accomplish what you desire. And you stand before the flames, staring deep within the flames, as you give the intention to open the doorways to alternate realms, as you seek ancestral help and support for the processes of transmutation by fire. And you stare into the flames as they move and alter their form. And you see, as if by magic, forms of individuals appearing from the flames as the doorways are opened. And for each of you, there is an ancestral guardian, an ancestral spirit that steps forward in front of you, glowing with the heat from the fire. You can feel it burning into your skin, glowing in front of you. Be aware of the tension that arises within you. The desire to perhaps turn, run, move, or distance yourself from the discomfort of the heat as you hold this space in readiness. And the ancestral essence and energy that stands before you reflects back to you the wisdom and the understanding of your being, and shows you what is required to be transformed. And it may not be what you thought. Allow yourself to be revealed to yourself through the mediation of this ancestral being of fire. And if you are ready to enable and allow the facilitation and the purification, you create from your body, from your being, a symbolic representation of that which you are now ready to surrender to the flames. You mold it almost like an effigy from aspects of your body, from aspects of your energies and the elements that comprise you. Notice if there is a key element that is brought forth into conscious awareness in respect of this particular transformation. You may find yourself creating something of earth, or something of water, or of nature. However it presents symbolically, create it. Take note of how you feel as this symbolic aspect of surrender is created. And when you are truly ready to release this element, this aspect, you hand it over to the ancestral fire spirit in front of you. Still feeling and experiencing the heat, you're not allowed to move yet. Hold your space. And what you have fashioned symbolically is then handed over and placed with love into the flames of the fire. And each item that is placed within this cauldron, this alchemical cauldron of incredible heat, generates a surge within the flames as they leap up higher and brighter, lighting up the entire enclosure in which you are standing. And you watch as what you have surrendered to the fire is burned up, changing form, changing color, changing essence. The flames change from orange to green to blue, and then leap up again with vibrancy as you witness the reds and the golds. And then from deep within the flames, the ancestral guardians reach in to locate your surrendered aspects and recover them from the flames. And you witness something of such beauty that has been birthed and brought forth from the ashes, from the flames of its complete surrender. And the gift is presented back to you. And this gift represents reinforcement of a quality, of an essence, of a beingness that is restored within you and will be restored as you embrace and embody the gift that is presented back. Take note of the symbolism, the colors, the essence of your gift. And as you absorb it back into your being, be aware of where it goes, what its actions are, what the emotions are that are generated within you, the visions and the awarenesses that emerge. And the medicine woman who has been holding this ceremonial space with sacredness and integrity now indicates that this part of the ceremony has been completed. And the ancestral energies and essences retreat back into the flames, back through the doorway. And once more, medicine woman brings her bucket of purified water around for each of you. And as she pours a small cupful into your outstretched hands, you are invited to throw the water upon the fire, to quench the flames, to soothe and cool the space. But as you do so, it is with an honoring and a closure of those doors, with gratitude and love and reverence for the gifts that the ancestral realms bring to ours. And you are now guided away from this enclosure, following a pathway that has been lit, down to a quiet pool that is shining under this African sky, under the bright light of a vibrant moon. The water is calm. It is a small pool. So the entire pool has been surrounded and lit by candles that glow in the dark. It is a continuation and a recognition of the inclusion of fire and light and life, the incorporation into this element of water, presented now for your healing and soothing and reharmonization as you are invited to soothe the fires that burn within you. And as if by magic, the medicine woman has appeared within this small body of water. She invites you in, one by one, and you step your toes into the water, and it's refreshingly cool. This is the same water that flows from the sacred spring that you took internally as you stood by the fire. And the water glistens almost as if from within. As you step into it, now beyond your ankles, up to your calves, you are aware of this cool, soothing essence and energy of the water flowing and imparting its messages and its wisdom and its purity and its blessings into the water of your body, seeking resonance with that which you ingested to bring all into harmony. So you ask now for the blessing from water, for well-being and prosperity, and for focus, the focus to achieve and accomplish that which will restore or bring or enhance your well-being and your prosperity, restoring the flow of your life with clarity. You ask for this with each step you take into deeper levels and layers of this body of water as you sink into it, up to your waist. Feeling a natural adjustment to the inner heat that your body has been experiencing, a restoration of balance through the blessings and a soothing. And the medicine woman calls upon the spirit of the water. And the spirit of the water appears. Whichever way you perceive her, it may be as glowing lights, awakening and enlivening the memories of your own unconscious, drawing the memories from your bones into your water, the memories of who you are, the blueprints of your divine seeding emanating from your bones, carried through the water to be perceived, experienced, and felt in your mind and heart, in your blood, in your body. Threads of light weave their way through the water in your being, interacting with the cells of every single organ. As you receive the blessing from the spirit of water. And you now allow yourself to be immersed in this water up over your head. And even though it is night time, the water itself is so clear in the reflected light of the candles and the moon. There is such peace. And knowingness. As you ask for the next relevant step to be taken in your life, allow the awareness to float up in your consciousness from the very cells of your being. For the pathway that is yours is blessed. The pathway that is yours is a light. And is facilitated by the transmuted gifts of fire. And by following this pathway, you assist in restoring harmony to the elements in the more expanded world. Allow yourself to float in this water as you find and become aware now of other members of this tribal community, sharing flowers, scattering petals and fragrant blooms onto the surface of the water in honor of the spirit of water and in honor of your journey and your role. Fragrant night blooms of flowers that have no name. A fragrance that infuses your skin, your hair, and is breathed into your being. And once more you become aware of the vibration and the sound of drums in the distance. Drums from the community, heralding the completion of the ceremony, as you are now guided out to the pool of water, purified, soothed, cleansed, reharmonized, focused. You're guided back across the sand into the enclosure, where you're now surrounded by the tribe who spend a few moments dancing around you, honoring you as an honorary member of their community. Just spend a few moments experiencing the joy of their expression and the joy in your own experience. And holding their hands in front of them, they now bow down before you as they back away, indicating that your time has come to return to this world. And you in turn bow down to them, to the medicine woman, for the gift of her facilitation, to the members of the community for their support, to the tree for holding the space for this community to bear witness to your transformation. You bow to the drummers who held the beat and kept the pulse active. And you turn and leave the village, taking a deep breath as you find yourself on a path that directs you back to this place and space, to this now moment, this now time. And with a deep breath in, you prepare to open your eyes and return restored to this world. And when you're ready, open your eyes and welcome back. How are you doing? I see I think we had a couple of people who actually had to leave partway through that. So I know that it was slightly longer in respect of overall session than normal. Are you guys back? We got some comments coming in. Elaine just said, amazing healing journey. Oh, that's wonderful, Elaine. So Natalie says, wow, I was gone for the first part, but came back just as we went to the pool. So many brilliant colors, neons and glowing after I came back out. Oh, that's beautiful. Like I was walking a rainbow. And what were we talking about? The Rainbow Water Tribe earlier. That's amazing. So invigorating. Oh, that's wonderful, Natalie. Thank you. It's always lovely to get your guys' feedback in respect of how you experienced it. A magical, mystical meditation. That's from Kitty. Thank you. Cynthia says, wow, MA and I opened our eyes to fire and water of the clouds flowing over the mountains. Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. That's amazing. Beautiful as always. Thank you, Natalie. So we went out and deep. Oh, yeah, that's wonderful. Well, that's usually the case with these processes, as you guys know. So I never know fully when we go into it what the process is actually going to be. Marina says, I had the perfect storm of noise. What's that? Went out and deep, sacred and holy. That's from Rosemary. Um, Went out and deep, had the perfect storm of noise, and now all is calm and quiet. Oh, isn't that just a beautiful analogy? Oh, well done, Marina. Bunny says, wow, so restorative, and yes, wonderful as always. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you, Bunny. It felt very sacred and holy and honoring in line with this because there is something absolutely divine in respect of that connectivity. So, oh, this looks like an interesting. Somebody's been writing a wonderful story. So Rachel says, "Thank you, Julie. I saw myself in my diamond. There was fire spiraling up and down my core column, and there was water within my diamond, and I was suspended within it. My body pulsed and moved all the way through, and my teeth were buzzing. I saw all of us being given a gift from the tree, and then I saw lots of African faces, men and women, and I heard, I'm just trying to get this, that we are all carrying the original blueprint for humanity, and that we needed to leave the African land and travel all around the world carrying the blueprint within us as a seed. We chose to leave as we knew we would return home." Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful experience and message there, Rachel. Thank you. Natalie says, "Oh, I just got chills." Yeah, I know, I did too. That was such a wonderful um, comment. And such a wonderful insight. Thank you for that. We would return home. And I think that's one of the reasons why I experience Africa as that, that there is something almost indefinable about connecting with that landscape. Felt galactic too. Yes, it did, because of the stars and that connection. So let's see. Wonderful comments. The water I sprinkled on the fire released as stars in the sky. My pool of water was hot springs versus cold water. Yeah, I must be honest, I don't like even imagining cold water, but it felt quite cool going into that process because it felt like it was needed. Beautiful. Elise says the gift back from the fire was a diamond octahedron. The lotus blossom surrounded by water I handed over reduced to carbon, and the fire transformed it into diamond. Oh, beautiful, Elise. What beautiful, beautiful imagery for that one. The jewel in the lotus. It's the jewel, the diamond that is born from the lotus flower. Ultimately, that is just so significant. I'm sure you know the jewel in the lotus expression, sort of the Om Mani Padme Hum. That is just so relevant and so real. Very powerful. Yes, now I have chills. Yes. Oh, that's beautiful. Lotus flowers for me were lotus candles floating on the waters. Absolutely wonderful. Rachel said, "I saw us all lying in the water, let's have a look, creating a shape as we lay back and connected feet and arms, I'm assuming that's like synchronized swimming." Oh, that's amazing. So all interconnected within the water. I do actually feel a bit cooler. I feel as if that heat has actually reduced and settled down. And calmed somewhat. And hopefully the heat that has been building. Cynthia says, "MA said when you sprinkled water onto the fire in the sparks were diamonds." Ah, that's beautiful, MA. That's absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. That connection is always there, I find, no matter what we do. It's just such a beautiful, powerful diamond connection that reverberates and sings throughout everything that we do. So that's just really wonderful. Thank you. Okay, guys, I've kept you for long enough. It's been almost 2 hours. And as always, I'm going to say thank you all so very much for your participation, for your blessed presence, for your gifts, your contributions, and for your wonderful willingness to be a living part of this growing, alive consciousness community, diamond community. I'm very, very grateful, as always, for you all. Rosemary says, "Thank you, Julie. It just keeps getting better." Oh, Rosemary, that is just so lovely. Thank you. Elaine says, "Ditto." It's just amazing to think that every time we do a process, it is so completely different. And that it fascinates me, the guidance of spirit into what is perfect for each and every particular moment in time. So, as always, you've got some fabulous information in the teleclass that you can go back to. I hope that you will enjoy reviewing it. If you want, I will send you a PDF of the slides as well as the recording so that you can actually make some notes if you want to go back to the presentation. There's a lot more to it. As I said, we've only scratched the surface, but you guys are absolutely wonderful. So God, I'm losing all of these comments. Rach, thank you everyone for sharing your diamond light. Honored to share mine as always. Thank you all. We're blessed to be a part of this with you. You are so wonderful. Thank you. Love you all. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's have a look. You're a shining jewel. Shine on, amazing diamonds. Oh, yes, you all. Absolutely. And I am blessed to be part of this with you. Please include the notes under the picture. Yes, I will do. I'll do the slides as well as some PDF of notes so that you can scribe and sit with this and actually go inwards with some of this understanding so that you can reconnect and establish on work on balancing as well for yourself. So as always, I love you all. I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Happy solstice. And enjoy the rest of the day, the evening, whatever. And I look forward to the next time that we gather. For Gold and Diamond members, we will be gathering and for our meetup, our community meetup probably next, I think it's next Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. So next Saturday, yeah, we'll have an opportunity to chat some more and to get to know each other with hopefully some of the newer members who haven't spoken with us before. So, yeah, thank you all for your sharing, your presence, your love. Love you.